I think it can be amplified in this lifestyle because once you're in a playing city, the group does do things so often because it's such a huge part of the guys coming and going. It's like the girls' camaraderie. It's like your support system when the guys are never home. And for me, this past season, obviously I had my first child and it was like still kind of COVID-y, like you had to be pretty careful still this season. And yeah, I definitely felt like even though I was always included and reached out to, just so isolated because it's just this new responsibility that felt like only mine. And that was, part of the struggle too, is that like obviously Riley is a great father and he's doing a wonderful job adjusting, but he just was not there for XYZ, and I had my mom for like the first 3 weeks of Slater's life, and then his family came, but then I was by myself in a city that I don't know.
Hello, you guys. Welcome back to Breaking the Ice podcast. My name is Devin. If you're new here, this is a podcast I created for wives and girlfriends of pro hockey players. But ever since this podcast started, it's turned into so much more. There's people that listen weekly that are not a spouse of a hockey player. Some people are just interested in the lifestyle. Maybe you're a friend or a family of the guest that's on for the week. Whatever it may be, wherever you're located in the world, you are welcome here. And I know there's so many options where you can listen to podcasts. So I'm just happy that you're choosing Breaking the Ice. So if you've not listened to other episodes, there are so many amazing guests and women I've had on from all over this lifestyle. So I encourage you to go back, check them out, and really just enjoy. I love listening to podcasts when I'm personally going for a walk or something. It's just nice to throw some AirPods in and just feel like you're, kind of sitting down and just chatting with people that get you. This episode I loved so much. And this episode is also an example of when something is not broken, please do not fix it. So what I mean by that is I have recorded the last 2 years over Zoom. I've never had any issues, maybe like 1 or 2 wonky audio issues, but I have noticed a lot more on Instagram that these podcast platforms, a lot of people are doing video now, and I'm very drawn to that. Like that always captivates me when I'm deciding if I want to listen to an episode on a different podcast that I listen to. And so I was like, wow, that's actually really cool. I would love to incorporate a video element into my Instagram page so people can actually see, me and the guest having an authentic conversation. Like I love that idea. So I tried a different platform, and you guys, it was a shit show. Kecia, thank you so much for your patience and bearing with me. It's been so crazy to figure out. So it was just, the audio was very mismatched. I don't know what was happening. Like it was delayed. There was times like I'm listening to it back where like we kind of start talking over each other, which was like not happening during the actual recording. So just something of the way that the whole thing was picked up, it sounded not the best quality. And I was really struggling with it because I was like, I have to publish this episode because I loved it so much and I just loved this conversation. I feel like it's very relatable. It was very just down to earth, and I loved talking to her, and I didn't want to have to A, make her re-record, and B, have us kind of just have the same conversation again talking about the same exact things and not having those initial first responses. So I was struggling on, do I put this out because the audio doesn't sound great, or do I put it out and just hope that, people can understand? So I decided to give it my best shot. I ran it through a bunch of different software platforms. I've tried to work on it and sort out the kinks to make it as great as possible for you guys. And, again, this is just life. Like, not everything is going to be perfect and smooth sailing. But anyways, I just still really wanted to post this just because I felt that there was so much to gain from this episode. And I know that you guys are going to love it. So maybe when I'm talking, just turn down the volume a little bit so I don't blow your eardrums out. With that being said, Kecia Sheehan joins me on the podcast. Her and her husband season in Seattle for the NHL. And I love talking to her. They are TBD on where they're going this year, but we really talked about all the things. When we recorded this episode, it was literally a week after they got married. So we chatted all about her wedding, what that was like planning a wedding during a pandemic, and how everything turned out. We talk about how her and her husband are from 2 different countries and how that worked during the pandemic. Also, just how to plant those roots when you're from different places and decide where you're going to live when you both, feel drawn towards your families and you want to be close to them, especially once you start to bring children into the world. Talk about what it was like going to Seattle, going to a brand new organization. We chat about what a free agent is and what that looks like. We talk about not trying to control the situation when you don't know where you're going, motherhood, hockey, the ups, the downs, all of that good stuff. So many golden nuggets in this conversation. I hope you enjoy. Again, just bear with my audio on this one. It's worth powering through. So enjoy the episode. Well, first of all, congratulations. You guys literally got married 1 week ago. Tell me everything. How was the wedding? Was this the date that you guys originally planned? Like, what did this all look like for you?
Yeah, so we finally got to have our celebration. We got engaged, it'll be 3 years in August. So we had already decided to wait like an extra year. So we weren't going to get married that following year, but had to postpone the following summer, which would have been last June. So our original date was a June wedding, and then we pushed it another year. So July 15th was our new date, which is we were able to keep, and it was awesome. So that was awesome. But we actually eloped between then and last week. So Riley and I got married officially last May in Joshua Tree, just the 2 of us and our photographer. And then we were finally able to have like our big party last week, which was so much fun.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people were doing that. I mean, given like the current state of the world the last 2 years, there was so many people that had to wind up canceling their wedding. And I really felt for all of the brides just in our lifestyle, because you already have such a limited time in the year to get married. I mean, even if you're in the NHL, like June is still a risky month. So you really just have like 3 months to be able to actually have a wedding, let alone everything with COVID and just everything continuing to get rescheduled and all of that stuff. Was that super frustrating for you?
It was. And for us, there was the added layer of like being from the States and Canada with the borders. Like that was such a big issue too, because when we chose to elope, we were like, okay, well, maybe let's just do a really small wedding, because we know a lot of people who have done that too and really loved it. And that kind of would fit our personalities to just like shrink it and, be done. But then we were like, well, we're not doing it if like my family can't be there. And he's like, I'm not doing it if my family can't be there. So then we're like, well, we can't do that either, which led us to really just being like, no one's coming except him and I. Yeah. Because we can be there.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we can commit to this, but
yeah, but it was frustrating, and I guess disheartening would be a better way to say it, because like obviously everyone has had to pivot so many times for so many reasons around the past few years, but it was just like for us too, we've been together for so long that like by the time he proposed, everyone was like, finally.
Yeah.
And then last week, everyone was like, finally. So,
yeah, about time.
Yeah. So with all said and done though, I think it turned out exactly how it was supposed to. And like I wouldn't change a thing. I loved the opportunity to elope just him and I because that was like a really special and intimate moment to share. And then getting to kind of like do it all again in a, guest friendly way, really just focus on our guests and making it as fun as possible and like lighthearted. And because we already had our emotional time, so we could just
Right.
kind of like make it really fun. And then there was no pressure on that day.
I always love when I see people's kids at their wedding because obviously once you have a kid, that becomes the most important thing in your life. And I always just, even now, having my son and just knowing how much we love him, I'm always like, I can't believe he wasn't at our wedding. Like, it just is so weird. So I think that's just so cute and so special that you guys have those memories and those photos that you guys can look back on. So you're right, like everything works out just the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, another added layer for me as the bride, like I had to like breastfeed him with my dress on. I just really had to
MVP.
adapt in that way. And that, so our wedding night was the first time I like sent him away with a babysitter too, that wasn't like my mom or his mom. So that was like a big step for me as well. And I was like preparing for it because it's not easy. Like, I mean, he's almost 7 months and it's just been, him and I and Riley, but for the first few months, not even Riley,
Yeah.
like with the hockey season, like he was in and out. And so it's that bond is there and trusting him going with someone was really hard. And to do it on the night of my wedding, I was like, he'll be okay. It's one night, but that was an added little challenge for sure.
Oh my gosh, I can totally relate to that. I mean, I didn't even leave my son until he was a year and a half, and I went to the retreat in Nashville. And at that point, I was kind of like, okay, I deserve like a break. I've been on for this long. But I mean, at 7 months, I would have had a really hard time leaving. It's hard to just, kind of just pass your baby off to someone and just trust that they're going to be able to know everything that they need. It's kind of stressful.
My maid of honor, she is pregnant with her first, so she was kind of my like go-to. The sitter would contact her if she needed help because she could obviously just drive over, and then I don't have to be, what didn't have to be checking my phone, and like it ended up working out really great. And he was fine.
I thought it probably felt like a really good little break too.
Yeah. Everyone, all of like we had another little celebration on Saturday just so we could actually spend some time with people, and all of the older guests were like, wow, you didn't leave the dance floor. And I was like, that was my first time drinking. That was my first time dancing. That was my first time like being out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was on the dance floor the whole time.
Yeah, I'm going all out, you guys. You don't understand. Like, I
Yeah.
don't get this very often. That's actually interesting, though, about you guys being from different countries, because I'm sure, like, not even wedding related, but, like, I know a lot of, obviously, in this lifestyle, like, so many hockey players are Canadian, and maybe they come play in the States, meet their significant other, and then, like, with COVID and everything, I know so many couples that weren't even allowed to, like, either they got stuck on other sides, like, or they weren't able to see their family for like 2 years. Did you guys experience that?
Yeah. Yeah, to an extent. So we were in Edmonton. He was playing in Edmonton when everything shut down. And luckily, I had just gotten back from a trip to Chicago. It was right around my youngest sister's birthday. So it just so happened that I had come home, and right when I got back, literally a week later, whoosh, everything shut down. So yes, I was stuck in Canada for a very long time. I don't think I saw my family for close to a year, which I know some people had it far worse, but we actually had just purchased a home in Huntsville, Ontario, on a lake up there. So we had like the most amazing hideout oasis, but we couldn't share it with anyone. Like it was like my dream home, and like I loved every second of it, but it still feels like this weird blip because we lived there for the height of the pandemic, and then we sold it because the market was wild and we had a great like seller's opportunity. So literally not a single person from my family or like my group of friends came to that house. So it feels like it didn't even have such a bizarre experience. And then to add on to that, that was the bubble summer. So the playoffs were in the bubble, and Edmonton made it to the first round that year, I think. And so Riley had to leave Huntsville, go back to the bubble in Edmonton. And so I was just like living in the woods of Ontario by myself during the bubble because I couldn't go anywhere. So I was just like no one knew where I was. Like it was complete isolation.
Like, is there Wi-Fi there? Are we talking like that isolate?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Oh my gosh, no. But so that was wild. And then on the tail end of that experience, we moved out of that house, and I was just like living in a friend's home closer to where his family lives when he went to Buffalo for like a player's tryout. So I was just like living in a stranger's home for a couple minutes, like just still stuck in Canada because I was like, I'm not going to Buffalo until you sign a contract or like make team or whatever, because what if you end up going somewhere else? So it was just such a whirlwind.
So was he able to come because he's Canadian? Is he able to come back at any time? But once you leave, like you could not come back in because you're not Canadian.
Yeah, that was kind of the issue. So he could go to the States, but he also needed a reason, because at the time he was signed in Edmonton. So with the P1 visa or whatever, like they would have been like, well, why do you need to come here? So it wasn't like we could have just like shifted to Chicago for a while, like during the pandemic. We were both kind of stuck on either side.
Yeah.
So I just stayed put because I was like, if I go and can't come back, like that stinks. And it was hard because obviously, like I missed my family, and it was obviously such a stressful time with so many unknowns. If you think back to like that summer into that winter, like, man, it was like scary, and to not see your family and like hope that everyone's doing okay. And it's such a crazy time to think back on now, but yeah, it was weird.
I know.
I just felt for all the families that were stuck farther, like at the end of the day, I was a drive over the border, if something were to have happened, but I really was like feeling for the people that were stuck overseas and, in much farther circumstances.
Well, I think also just feeling like you can't go too, like adds an extra stress of like, and especially for you guys, it's like, well, I might make a decision and then I'm actually going to not, see my significant other for X amount of time. Like that could happen.
Yeah.
And so there's like so much unknown. And it's kind of funny how the last 2 years have happened, because I feel like it started, everyone was like, this is a joke, like this is so stupid. And then it got like, it just went downhill, and then it was like so serious for a long time. And now I feel like, everyone's kind of coming out the other side. Not to say it's not like serious and severe for some people, because it is. But anyhow, COVID talk, I feel like can go on and on.
Yeah. It's endless. Yeah. I know.
So what made you guys wind up deciding to live in Chicago, both being from different places?
Yeah, well, it's temporary. This is like the hot question right now for us, because we do have a family now, and Riley's not far from, hanging up the cleats and being done. So we have to kind of think about that soon, but it's tough. Like we're close with our families. We both really love where we're from. We chose to buy a condo here just because we knew we wanted to kind of have the city experience for a couple of years. Well, Slater's young and we kind of have some freedom. And it's been so fun. Like we live in a really cool area, but it's a 2-bedroom condo. It's not a forever home. So we kind of have to figure that out soon. And it's hard because one of us has to be
sacrificed
from our people yet again. Yeah. And I've told him, like, and I'm sure a lot of hockey significant others can relate, like he's played for 10 seasons, and for those 10 seasons I've been traveling home to my family. Like it's never like we've never played in Chicago, so we've never been close, so it's kind of hard because it's like I would love to just stay put here somewhere and have that luxury of like, Mom, can you come over for a couple hours and watch Slater, but he would love the same thing, and his family has also missed him for however long. So It's a hot question. We don't know yet, but I'm sure a lot of other people can relate to that one, especially if there's two countries involved. Adds a little extra challenge. But we have talked about perhaps just having like one school year residence of some sort, and then a summer, like, we loved our time on the lake, so maybe something like
Mm-hmm.
that. Either way. So it's hard. I don't know. We haven't
Yeah, no,
decided
that's a
yet.
nice idea. That is really hard. I feel like that's very relatable. Um, because if you both love where you're living and you both have, supportive families that you want to be by, it's like, how do we really
Hmm.
decide this? Like, do you guys just have like frequent
Yeah.
conversations about it, or like, is it like something that is kind of a struggle and just a back and forth for a while, and like hopefully at some point you'll narrow something down, or like what does that look like?
Yeah. I feel like we hadn't talked about it seriously for a long time because we were kind of like, this is hard. And when you're younger, you're like, oh, we'll get there. But now it's like, this isn't too far off. So we have had more conversations, and we're just trying to figure out like how to do the most with our money when it comes to investing in properties and like homes and whatnot. Which is a cool problem to have. But we're thinking about what's next and trying to make smart choices in that regard too, not just buy something to buy something. So it's yeah, we're definitely having more serious conversations about it now, but I think recently we were talking and I was like, can we just like pause? Because we're not
Yeah,
making any
like
progress.
I can actually really relate to that because we live in Idaho and we met here, but neither of us have family here. And I'm from San Diego, so I was actually down there like a month ago. And, when we got back to Idaho, I just had a moment of like, why do we live here? Like, we don't have help. This is so hard. And when we are living overseas, I think for me, my feelings are amplified just because I'm not in my space of comfort. But then we come back here and we still don't have help. So it can be really frustrating. And it's this really weird pull of like, what do we want to do? Like, how does this work? How are we going to make this work long term with no help? But obviously California is just very unaffordable. So for us personally, like we just can't afford to live there at this point in our life. But it's definitely hard to, not necessarily know where you want to settle down and plant roots.
Well, in the way that you are used to, or that like, I'm sure you have a beautiful setup in Idaho, and you could never replicate
Oh,
that in
oh my God,
California with
no.
the same investment. Like, it's it's a real
Yeah.
thing for
Yeah, it's
sure.
hard. I think a lot of people can relate to that too. And because, I would say pretty much there is probably a handful of people that, and I want to hear all about how you guys met too, but there's probably a handful of people that did meet maybe in
Yeah.
high school or, early on, or their husband came to and played
Yeah.
juniors where they're from. And, like it kind of just worked out that way. But there's so many people that just met from
Yeah.
completely different sides of the world, the country. And it's like, how do we like meet here so that we both feel like supported?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a hard decision for sure.
Yeah. I mean, like you said before, we're lucky that we have, two places that we could thrive
Right.
in, and have, the families, good relationships on both sides. I've heard a lot of
Yeah, like we're
horror
not going
stories with girls in this life as well. So I feel really blessed to have, like, his family that I would love to be near and all that too. We actually met in college. So we both went to Notre Dame. I played soccer, he played hockey. And yeah, we just kind of met there and made it work. I actually transferred to Colorado, and he left to go play. So he left Notre Dame early. I left Notre Dame to just transfer. So we were doing long distance for, I would say, like 4 or 5 years of
Oh
our
my God, that was a
relationship.
long time.
Because we were, yeah, because we were young. Like, I was a sophomore in college. Like, so my sophomore fall, we started dating. And then I still had 2 years of college to finish up. And then had to go back for a semester because I ended up going to play professionally in Chicago, like right out of college. And then I stayed in Chicago to work because I was like, I'm gonna do my own thing for a little. And so then by the time all of that was done and I finally moved in with him, we had been doing distance for a long time, and for us it worked. I think it was just like our opportunity to grow separately while also, building our relationship. But I don't miss that at all.
Isn't it funny to take yourself back into that bubble? I always say, I'm like, I was such a psycho. Like, I mean, it's just hard because it's like we met when we were really young. We met when I was in college and he was playing where I went to college, which is in Idaho. But we were young. We were 21 years old. And like, I didn't really know who I was at that age. And it's like, just the communication was awful. Like, and then I would just be like raging upset, like at all times. And I'm like, this is just not healthy for us to be like doing this long distance. So, but we only did it for probably 2 years, but 5 years, I'm like, whenever I hear people say like anything like more than 2 years, I'm like, good for you guys, because that's a long time.
Yeah, I mean, luckily we were in a position where like I could go see him as much as possible. Where I went to school in Colorado was on what's called a block plan. So you were in, instead of like a semester of courses, it was one course at a time really intensively for 3.5 weeks. So then at the end of that 3.5 weeks, you have a long weekend before your next one starts. So I would just go every time, which was awesome. And then I was able to do like my thesis remotely. So I actually did my thesis in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where I at the time. Again, doing things. But at that point, I didn't realize, like, I was just trying to hang out with him. I didn't realize like that those were huge, like life-changing sacrifices I was making.
Totally.
Like, I wouldn't change any of it, but I did miss out on like, certain things that my classmates and peers were doing because I wanted to go be there. Like, it's where I wanted to be, but it's just like, you don't even realize the commitment to this lifestyle that you're making until you look back sometimes. It's like,
and then you wind up like having a kid and you're like, wow, I literally can't go anywhere and do these things now. And I was just at a wedding this like a couple weekends ago, and I was just saying that I'm like, I would never change my life, and I would never change just like the order of how things happened. But it is hard sometimes when you see, all your friends getting together and they're going to Stagecoach and they're going to this. And I'm like, again, I would never change it because I love my family, but I'm also like, wow, it's like more than FOMO. It's like, did I miss like these big things or like, I just feel left out even though I'm included. Like, it's a weird like balancing act.
For sure. And I think that's just part of motherhood in general. I'm discovering, like, I think it can be amplified in this lifestyle because once you're in a playing city, the group does do things so often because it's such a huge part of the guys coming and going. It's like the girls' camaraderie. It's like your support system when the guys are never home. And for me, this past season, obviously I had my first child, and it was like still kind of COVID-y, like you had to be pretty careful still this season. And yeah, I definitely felt like even though I was always included and reached out to, just so isolated because it's just this new responsibility that felt like only mine. And that was, part of the struggle too, is that like, obviously Riley is a great father and he's doing a wonderful job adjusting, but he just was not there for XYZ, like, and I had help. I had my mom for like the first 3 weeks of Slater's life, and then his family came, but then I was by myself in a city that I don't know and trying to keep this baby and this dog alive like myself. And it felt like a lot. And I know obviously, even if people listening to this aren't in the hockey world, like it's no different, I'm sure, for a lot of people, but it's aside from just feeling like you're missing out on stuff, you're also just like feel like separate for no reason.
Totally.
You're just like this window that you're looking.
I mean, I still feel this way to an extent, but just when you're first postpartum, it's like people want to help, but it's almost this feeling of like, I don't want to burden them, even though they're asking like can I help? Or can, let me watch the baby or let me do this. It's like, oh, no. Like, I got it. Like, I have it covered, even though you like deep down, like desperately want help. It's just like, it's really just like hard, and learning that and being alone and kind of going through that. I think in my, personal life, like I'm the first of both of my friend groups from high school and college to have a baby. But I think what's helped gotten me through like motherhood, honestly, is like the hockey community, because I feel like so many people in this community have kids that's been really helpful to me to like ask questions to and stuff, because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing and I don't really have anyone to ask. So,
right.
But yeah, it's a very isolating time, and especially like you guys, and we were too, but you went to a new team for your first child. So it's like, it's brand new, even though it's a community, it's a brand new group of people.
Yeah. And no matter how sweet they are, it's just like, it's a learning for you too, as a new mom. It's like, yeah, I have people offering to help left and right, but like, I felt a responsibility to like be figuring things out for myself too. And I was like, I don't want to figure out how to do this. This might sound really crazy, but I'm sure some people can relate. I want to figure out how to do this without help, because I'm not going to have it all the time. So it's like this backwards, like psychoanalyst, whatever. But like, I was like, okay, I'm going to have situations where it is going to be like totally on me. So I need to learn how to do this and be okay and take care of myself. And like, but then I like looking back on the first, like, couple months that I was doing that to myself, I'm like, oh, like you didn't need to be that hardcore, So if anyone is going to be having their baby this fall, or, right when season starts, like just, you can learn and accept a little more help. It's so there's a balance. I mean, and I was okay. Luckily I didn't suffer from any, postpartum depression or anything like that. It's just hard, but I feel for those that have, some of those conditions on top of just the struggles of, this life-changing process. But yeah, Seattle was unique too, because it was literally the first team. So there was no pre-existing anything. So lucky for me, I was the last one to have my baby. There were like 4 newborns, like insane. But Slater was the last one there's 4 boys, which is so crazy. So a couple had theirs like right before the season started. And then at least I had other fresh moms to, what pediatrician are you going to? Or like, how did you like your doctor? Or like, how do you like your hospital? So some of that was helpful, but they didn't know either.
Yeah.
They were like
just winging it.
blind. Nobody had a familiarity with the area. So
do you feel like it's made you like a stronger mom though? Like having gone through what you went through?
Yes. Like I said, I have this like really strong sense of independence as a mom. Like I can do it. Like I know what he needs. I know what I need, but like we did it. And so now it's like an added bonus, obviously, to have Riley around this summer and like let him experience not just like the struggles of trying to get Slater to take the bottle, but like the little moments that they just don't to be there long enough to experience sometimes. Like he'll catch a giggle or a smile or, a funny thing, but it's like the tiny little moments that you have to be around all the time to really appreciate. And he's finally getting to experience some of that, which makes it way more fun for me too. Like obviously there's endless rewarding moments as a mom, but to see like your partner get to like experience some of those like extremely joyful little tiny moments. It's so fun.
Yes, I feel this. Yes.
I know.
Yeah.
Because it's true. And like they miss out on like for how much we have to do as, mothers of hockey wives, they miss out on so much that I cry too. This is so emotional.
Yeah.
It's like it's not like they have a choice sometimes, and it's like, I don't know. It's easy for some people to kind of be like, oh, those poor wives or like whatever, but poor guys too. Like it's their baby too. And I'm sure a lot of them would rather be home, soaking it all up. So I just want to shout out to all the all the
I
hockey
love
dads
that
too.
too. Like the first, few months, the baby's so like, I want mom, and like mom is like my source, for
Yes,
everything. And it only
for
gets better
sure.
and better. Like the stage you're at right now is such a fun stage, and it literally gets better and better. And it's just so special to see like the bond as they get older too, because they're realizing now like, oh, I can make my baby laugh, and I get to like experience these
Yeah,
things where I feel like at least like my husband felt pretty helpless the first few months. He's just like, I don't know like what to do,
yeah.
and like
Oh
he
yeah.
wants you, and like he wants the groove, and I'm just like, oh my god, but like, and then and the whole thing is rewarding. It comes in waves of hard and everything, which
Yeah,
is if you're a mom
definitely.
listening, I'm sure you completely understand, but no, it's very rewarding. And I think too, even having a kid, like my husband texts me more than ever when he's on the road, like, what's Crosby doing? Like, send me pictures of
Yeah,
him. And like, I didn't get this
yeah,
kind of treatment when it was just me and you. You're just like doing that. Now he's like, tell me everything.
yeah.
Yeah,
Keeping tabs.
exactly.
Yeah. No, I know. So
Oh
cute.
man. So
So
where were
cute.
you guys like, I guess tell me like a little bit about your hockey story. So you guys were long distance for a while, and then
Yeah.
you finally
Yeah.
made the move to be together. And like, what does that look like? Like, has it been a lot of movement? Have you had it pretty stable? Like, what's your journey been like?
Yeah, so we've definitely been bopping around the last few years. He started his like pro career with Detroit, so he played for the AHL team, the Griffins, for like a full season, and then he was up with the Wings, and he spent about 4 or 5 years there. So that was like the bulk of his early career in Detroit. And by the time I moved in with him, we bought a house, which is a curse, lady. Don't buy a house in a playing city.
Unless you want to
Don't
live
do
there in
it.
the off season.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So we had this beautiful home in the suburbs of Detroit. Neither of us are from there. We're like immediately got traded.
Oh no.
I think we had it for maybe a year. We did the whole yard. It was perfect. And then boop, gone. So he got traded to Pittsburgh from there. So we kind of just left the house, went to Pittsburgh together. And obviously, going from a team that you've been on for several years to a new one is a big shift. But all the girls in Pittsburgh were so great and welcoming that that transition was actually very smooth. Looking back, I was obviously super intimidated. Pretty
Was that from the AHL to the NHL, like for the
No,
first time?
it was NHL to NHL, which luckily
Okay.
would have been an even bigger, bigger dynamic.
Yeah.
But we ended up living downtown Pittsburgh, and I didn't know a thing about Pittsburgh. I had to check where it was on the map. I had no idea, and we loved it. It was great. We were there for like a season and a bit, and then we got traded again. I literally picked up my dad from the airport so he could come see his first Penguins game, and we get home, and Riley comes out of our room, and he's like, I just got traded to Florida. I gotta go. Can you take me to the airport? And I was like, oh, I was just at the airport. I just looked at my dad and I was like, well, I guess we're not going to go to the game tonight. Anyway, so he was in Florida for the rest of that season. So we call it, he was in Florida for a cup of coffee. He was literally there for like a month or two. I think that was his first summer as a free agent. So that was, our first experience truly not knowing where we were heading in fall, which is quite the trip. And that next team was Edmonton. So we signed in Edmonton, I think, end of August. So we just figured it out and headed out there ASAP for preseason. The world shut down. That season ended. And we had a PTO with Buffalo in January because the season started like just such a wonky year. So we ended up in Buffalo for that shortened, condensed season. And then, so we were free agents before Buffalo again. And then after Buffalo, free agent again. And that's how we ended up in Seattle last year. And now we're free agents again.
Yes. Okay. So for people that might not know, can you explain what being a free agent is? I guess I feel like most people know what that is, but
So basically, it's just like when you sign a 1-year contract or when your contract completes. So for us, he's just been signing 1-year contracts, just the way things have fallen. So you basically finish a season and then that team has your rights for X amount of time before free agency begins. And then it's basically a free for all for the rest of the summer until the following season starts of like who can scoop you up, offer you a contract or not offer you a contract. It's kind of just this like in between waiting period. And it kind of has waves. Like I think last weekend was the beginning of this free agency, and it's like people just get swooped up in one big chunk, and then us are just like waiting to see.
yeah, is that hard for your husband to like see that and not get a contract somewhere?
Definitely, and that's one of the things I wanted to kind of touch on too about free agency. It's like as hard as it is as like the family like planner to not know like where we're gonna live or like where to pack stuff up and send it to. It's also got to be so incredibly hard as the player to just be like, okay, like, am I really not, wanted or needed or like where's my role? Because my husband he's a seasoned vet. Like he's going on his 11th season in the NHL. Like he obviously has a lot to bring to any team, but it's like which team's the right fit this year and which one is going to see the value in an old 30-year-old player. The process of not knowing is hard on our entire family, and it's like parents too, because where we end up obviously impacts them too. But as the person who is the commodity, it's got to be just like so stressful. And I think he does a very good job of managing it and trying not to let it impact like our day-to-day life, because this is also our time off together. So it's like you have a big elephant in the room often, but at the same time, it's like this is still our time to enjoy where we are and not think too far ahead and just trust that, wherever we end up, we'll make it work. We have in the past, we know we can do it. And there's not a bad place to go, which I think is important to keep in mind too. Like when you think about the fact that like signing a contract anywhere is still such an elite experience and something that so many people would love to do. You just got to kind of keep all those things in check.
Yeah, I always tell my husband too, because like we don't have a contract for next season. Like he's injured, so we can't even go anywhere. But I'm like, it always works out. Like even in like his moments where he's like, what if nothing happens? Like, what if I don't get a contract? I'm like, it always works out. Every year something happens where, I understand the uncertainty. Like it's, you can't help but wonder, like with us, there's the KHL. I don't know if you know anything about that, but that's in Russia. So a lot of these European teams are signing the players from there first, which puts a lot of people that have been playing in these top leagues like out of jobs. So I know a lot of people are stressed about that. And I think it's almost like a benefit to us actually that we're not able to go anywhere until October, because that's when people start getting hurt and all of, spots start opening up. But it always works out. And, everything always happens. It's kind of cliche, but it just happens the way it's supposed to be. So like wherever you guys are supposed to go next year, like it will happen the way that it's supposed to.
Definitely. And I think, like I said, it's just reminding yourself of that when it feels like crazy. Because I know it's so, especially when I'm home and with my friends who are not in this lifestyle, like sometimes I'm like, damn, must be nice to like hang pictures on the wall and like, wow, that's really good. And like this place is cool. Like our place in Chicago, we are making it home because we hope to hold on to it for a while, but we rented it out to friends that play in Chicago. Like it's still a space that's not completely ours. Like, so yeah.
Which is
it's
hard.
Just one of those things though, I keep in perspective. Like, yeah, okay, I'm at my best friend's house and I'm like, wow, it must be nice to have a home where you and have a nursery and like out. But then I'm like, at the same time, I'm like, I've gotten the privilege of living in so many different cities that I never would have even traveled to. I've met so many amazing women and people. I've had so many different opportunities that I never would have had. So it's just like, yeah, I keep saying it, but just like resetting your perspective sometimes. Cause it is like hard. There's no way around the fact that not knowing where you're going to live, especially adding a child to that. And some people with multiple children in school, like that's just another level. And it's a lot, but that's when you just hope the teams that you end up at have, the resources and the people, and asking for help and accepting help and accepting guidance, I think is one of the biggest words of advice I could give anybody that's, doing it for the first time or like feeling apprehensive, is just like, let people help you and trust that they have your best interests at heart, because they have no reason not to,
And I think just being like, open to new people and new experiences. And I think in your typical world and relationships, you don't go out and tell it's like I meet people in the hockey world and I'm like having a deep heart to heart with them like the first time we hang out, and we're exchanging like our hockey stories and like all that stuff. And it's like you're not necessarily doing that with people that you're just a neighbor or like a friend or something. And so it really expedites like the depth in your relationships. But that's also like a positive, because you can really get to know people. And I think it allows people to be and feel close to you and want to help you and care about you. And when you're living this lifestyle that's so isolated, and it is a long time, like we always find ourselves also saying, well, it's only 8 months, but it's like, that's the majority of the year. And like, you want to have a circle that, is supportive and two-way street, like you want to help them, they want to help you, and you want to all just make it easier for each other, because what it's like to be in the positions that we are put in sometimes.
That's so funny you say that, because we have that discussion every time. We're like, even when we're just trying to find like a place to land on, like when you're trying to pick an apartment or something and you have 2 weeks to figure it all out, you're like, well, it's like, it'll be fine. It's just for the season. And you're like, wait.
This is like most of the year.
Maybe get comfortable. But it's so funny, like how you rationalize things. More stuff equals more stuff to pack and unpack. And I'm just like,
yes,
no thanks. Like, oh, you have a storage unit in Ontario. We have stuff in storage here. I'm just like, where is my stuff? I don't know. I don't want to add to
it. Where'd that shirt go?
Where's my Christmas tree? What city is my Christmas tree in? Get another one. Cool. I have 6 Christmas trees now. He loves Christmas. I can't blame him. He's like, let's get our decorations up. And I'm like, well, okay, maybe like your dad can bring the stand and the lights and he's like, Kecia, how's he going to bring those to Seattle? He's not going to drive from Ontario to Seattle just to bring our Christmas stuff. And I was like, okay, fine, we'll buy a new one. We'll be able to put a Christmas tree in every single room of our house someday with all of the stuff we collect.
Yeah, that's the goal. Like had someone build a storage unit on the side of our house, and that has been like a complete game changer. I think there was one season where we rented a storage unit and it was like 2 miles from our house, and it was honestly the most annoying thing ever, because not only when you're in that like last minute just chaos of trying to get all the shit you need for the season and just like packing your stuff up, and it's like we're driving like back and forth like 20 miles, like not 20 is like not even that much. Like I swear like 100 miles a day just to drop the stuff off at the storage unit. So building that on the side of the house is so nice, because we literally just like go in our backyard and just put it in, and then we know. And then we've been doing Airbnb, just kind of piggybacking off what you say about like just not being able to totally make your house feel like home. That's been really hard, because when I'm in it, I'm like, I want to like have stuff that I love everywhere. But then my husband puts things in perspective, and he's like, well, why would we spend a bunch of money on like this furniture that someone else just gets to use?
Yeah. Live such a transient lifestyle. Like that's one thing we've been talking about the future, and I'm just like, I just crave being somewhere where I can like, so cheesy, but I want to mark Slater's height on the wall and not have like, some stranger look at it. Like there's little things I want to have like all of my like, baking tools and have them all when I need them. Like just little things that just will feel so good when you can finally
I know. Maybe when we're 50.
Baking Christmas cookies year round with all of my.
Unless he goes into coaching, do you think he wants to do that, or do you know, like, does he have any idea what he wants to do when he does retire?
On the radar, and I would definitely pipe up. I don't see that working like with what I envision for our family. Like coaching is still basically the same schedule. Like more power to unless he was like die hard, like knew that was his calling and like was really good at it. I just don't think I'd be down for that. He actually has been doing a lot of work in the mental health space the past couple of years and has his own podcast with one of his friends, Tyler Smith, and he's been doing a lot in that realm. And I think he'd love to continue to kind of bridge the gap for hockey specifically with this like macho stereotype, but like breaking down some of those barriers and focusing on mental health. Because I mean, like I said, he's been in this lifestyle for a really long time and has seen a lot of people really suffer and not, himself included, and not like have the confidence, support,
the tools,
feel and like express emotions. And it's not only just to enjoy the hockey experience more, but also like to not damage relationships and opportunities for yourself beyond by just like shutting down and like just becoming the robot that is so easy to become in this lifestyle that has so much expected from you. So I'm really proud of him for all of his stuff he's been doing with that. And I really hope and encourage him to continue to try to figure out how to make that part of his post-career plan. Like I mentioned before, he's also interested in like real estate opportunities and kind of seeing how that can play out. So yeah, he has some things going on moving forward. And I think that's how you know when they're kind of ready to be done too, is when they can kind of voice an excitement for what's next and not just like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to be without hockey or like what life's going to look like. It'll still be a hard transition, but just having like a vision and like something to think about for after, I think is really good.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's something that I really hope to see get, more substantial in this community on teams. I think even for wives, like it's just a hard lifestyle in general. And I think having those resources are super important. And what's the name of his podcast so I can plug it into the show notes if anyone wants to send it to their husband or give it a listen themselves?
Podcast, and it's powered by Torch Pro, which is also a really cool company that Riley's part of. It's basically like helping athletes utilize like their social media presence more effectively and like partnering with brands and things that actually represent them, not just money making, like Coca-Cola, like things that really align with who you are, so that when you're done, you can have more avenues of opportunities too. So Speak Your Mind podcast and Torch Pro are a couple of things that would be cool to check out for sure on his side of things.
Awesome. And then you have a few things going on too, which I'd love for you to share with everyone, and I'll also include anything like that in the show notes.
I already told you how many times I have to move around and I never know which country I'm going to be in or whatever. So having a, standard career has been really challenging for me. So while we were in Buffalo, I finally got my personal training certification along with pre and postnatal training certification, which obviously now I have the experience of having a baby and being postpartum. So kind of like my niche right now is working with moms and new moms. But I started Vitality with Kecia a little over a year ago, which is just basically a catch-all of everything that I'm passionate about: nutrition, health, wellness. I do personal training virtually with a lot of people, which is really cool for me because I can do that from wherever the heck I end up. Now that my baby is getting a little bit older, I'm hoping in whatever city we're in to do, you know, more in-person training and group stuff. And I have some plans for that, but yeah, it's been fun and just letting it grow organically and kind of not putting a lot of pressure on it. And it's been great. So
that would be really cool. Just, I'm like totally projecting something right now, but like for you and your husband to collaborate at some point and do some sort of cool, like mental and physical health event. I don't know. That just came to my mind for some reason, but I think that would be really cool.
Been on our minds too. If we could combine like all the things that we're, you know, really like fiery and passionate about, and to, you know, help people too, I think is one of our biggest callings post hockey, because we have lived such a privileged life that be able to like put our strengths to use in a really effective way would be really, really cool. So we're hoping to do something along those lines in the future in some way. So,
well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It was so nice just getting to know you, and been following you for so long. So it was nice to just meet, I guess, in real life and chat.
I feel like it's so cool what you're doing, and just connecting with, you know, women from all different, I mean, we have so much in common, no matter what like league you're in or what level. It's all a grind. So the camaraderie you bring to the space is awesome. So thanks for doing that.